It is early May in Door County and at the clearing, of course. Things happen more slowly up here than, let's say, even Green Bay or further south away from the lake, because things warm up slowly with such big cold water on both sides. But things are happening are starting to come up. Here we are near the campus, just south of the main campus parking lot. And we have a nice patch of wild leek in here. It's just the foliage in spring. Foliage comes up on this nice green, often in thick patches. There are parts of places in Door County where it's just like a ground cover for many square feet. It's in the onion family, typical allium leaf. And if you crush it, you get that nice onion or chive flavor or odor. And if I dug one up, I'm not going to, but there's a little bulb that is edible, as is the foliage. People make leek soup out of the bulbs and the foliage. It's very tasty. But we only have the leaves in spring. It's a classic spring ephemeral. Ephemeral means fleeting in the world of wildflowers. It comes up quickly, early and quickly, takes advantage of the sunlight while it can, until the canopy of trees fills in above and shades it out, and then it dies back to the ground, disappears after a month or so. And then something unusual happens with wild leeks. It's also called ramp, R-A-M-P, ramp, by the way. Something unusual happens. In midsummer, another stalk comes up, no leaves, just a flower stalk. It gets about maybe 8-10 inches tall, and a little round ball of white flowers appears and sets seed and drops a seed. So it has two seasons. The foliage season in the spring, and that disappears then when it gets too shady, and then the flowering season in midsummer. So that's wild leek or ramp. And also right in the middle here, we have one of our earliest blooming wildflowers. This is Sharp-lobed hepatica with its pretty white flower. It's one of the anemones or wind flowers, and plants in that genus, not sure about the family, but in the genus, they don't have any pollen. It's not insect pollinated, it's wind pollinated, also called wind flowers. And its old foliage died back. It's evergreen, keeps its green foliage all winter, often under the snow, of course. And then in early spring, the last year's foliage starts to die back and the new leaves emerge. These fuzzy little green, it's actually a leaf with a leaflet with three leaf. The whole thing is, what I'm trying to say is the whole thing, you can't see it probably until Eric gets closer, is a leaf made up of three leaflets. It's a compound leaf on Sharp-lobed hepatica. So things are starting to happen. Another couple of weeks, there'll be a lot more in bloom. Just a little bit of ways from the wild leek are some trout lilies, also called dog-tooth violet. It's another classic spring ephemeral up here. The leaves come up, it'll flower in a couple of weeks, and by the time we do a Mosey in a month, the flowers will be done. So I'm just showing you the foliage. Comes up, does all its business very quickly, and then it dies back when it gets too shady. And I guess it's called trout lily because somebody thought at once upon a time that it looked kind of like a trout. The foliage looked like a trout. It's a beautiful little nodding yellow flower. Probably in a week or two it'll be in bloom, but too early here. But so we had wild leek, Sharp-lobed hepatica, and now trout lily, also called dog-tooth violet. One of the earliest blooming shrubs in Door County is leatherwood, one of my favorites. Called leatherwood because the stems are so pliable you can practically tie them in a knot. Blooms very early, not showy but pretty. These little yellow flowers, often in pairs, that hang down. And they start coming out before the leaves even pop. The leaves are starting to come out now, but very early flowering. And these little yellow flowers will turn into a little fruit called it's a one-seeded fruit. People just call them collectively berries, but it's actually a drupe, D-R-U-P-E. That's a fleshy fruit with one seed. And they form, and they're kind of yellowish green, and they form very early. So by mid to late June, they're already ripe, and there's not a whole lot to eat for birds that eat birds that early, so they're taken very quickly. I've always loved this plant. I think it has a nice growth habit, not real twiggy, doesn't get too big. It's a classic understory shrub. It doesn't like it out in full sun. It likes it not in deep shade, but kind of high shade like this, where it thrives. But you get it out in the sun where it's also dry often and windy, they don't do well. But it is a classic understory shrub in Door County, and there are hundreds of them at the clearing. One of my favorites, leatherwood. Now we got lucky, and right along the road where it is more sun and it warms up a little faster, Eric found a trout lily in bloom. And they really are beautiful flowers, kind of thick, leathery petals. But that's, again, one of the first wildflowers to bloom up here, trout lily. Very nice one. Here's a beautiful patch of bloodroot right on the south side of Martha's cabin on Central Campus, with its gorgeous pure white flowers and its nice scalloped foliage starting to come up, these large leaves that stay nice all season, especially when they're in a little bit of shade. This is one of those wildflowers. Depends on the weather how long the flowers last. If they bloom during a period of really warm spring weather, they might only last 2 or 3 days. But in cooler springs like we're having this year so far, they can last a couple weeks. I've got a bunch at home that have been in bloom for over a week now. But this is one of my favorites. It's called bloodroot because if you break off a stem right at the base or dig up a little bit of the root and squeeze it, you get a little red sap that comes out, hence the name bloodroot. But this is one of our most beautiful spring wildflowers, bloodroot. Right in front of this emerging early meadow rue, which isn't in full bloom yet, but really nice color, early spring color, is a patch of dwarf lake iris. The clearing was the organization selected by essentially the state of Wisconsin and the town of Liberty Grove to do a plant rescue of a bunch of dwarf lake iris along York Bay Road. This was last September. The ridges joined in because there was so much. So we lifted a bunch of clumps of dwarf lake iris, which were right along the road where they were going to widen the road and they were just going to be lost. So we lifted dozens and dozens and dozens of clumps of them with our volunteer crew and Beth and Renee, our 2 gardeners, and brought them over to the clearing, healed them in for a couple of weeks in the shade, and then planted them out one Thursday morning. And this is one of the patches right along the main drive in front of the West Dorm, and you can just see them beginning to emerge. So we're very hopeful that these are all here's another patch right here. We're very hopeful that they're going to succeed, and we're going to have a lot more dwarf lake iris at the clearing than we once had. There's another patch, big patch, right here. You can see them, they're a little taller here. So this is the first time we've ever done this, ever moved them, dwarf lake iris. So we're hopeful, but if they're like other iris, they should move. They move pretty easily, iris in general, and we hope that these succeed. We'll probably get a little more mulch on them this spring and keep them flagged so we know where they are, so we can keep them watered during very dry weather. But after a year or so of special care, they should be fine, and they're in great spots here in plenty of sun. Dwarf lake iris.